It's Sunday, February 6th. We welcome Rabbi Secher and his wife, Ina, and they are going to give us a wonderful presentation this morning. And I know they're going to leave us with a note of hope at the end. So please take it away.
All right. I'm not sure we're going to leave you with a note of hope.
Well, come on.
But you'll see. I'm glad to be back. I mean, I'm bearing in mind that Highland Park is my old stamping grounds, and we were due back in December, you and I, but unfortunately I had an accident, put me in the hospital for quite some time, but here I am, all fine and dandy.
We are so thankful. I didn't share that with everyone because that wasn't my story to tell, but we were worried about you and we're glad that you're here this morning.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here this morning. So, and you know, as I'm looking at the screen, 45 or so screens up, and at least 40% or so of you I know. It is so wonderful. So here we are out of Montana, in Whitefish, Montana, and Ina, my wife, who is an author, and I will share this story with you. Whitefish, Montana is in the northwest corner of Montana. We are 50 miles from the Canadian border and 50 miles from the Idaho border. But the great element of Whitefish is we are 20 miles away from Glacier National Park. And I liken Whitefish most of the time to the Garden of Eden, that I say Whitefish is what the Garden of Eden was supposed to be. Ina and I have lived here now since 2000. So we're in our 22nd year of living here. And what we want to do this morning is tell you the story of what happened 5 years ago in Whitefish, Montana, which I sincerely believe is the prelude to all the anti-Semitism that is spewing out across the country. And whatever I forget, Dan Weinberg from Hawaii is on the screen and he can fill in. So I'm going to now turn things over to Ina. She'll start the process.
Well, let me tell you a little bit more about what Whitefish is and how it affected us when we moved here. We moved from Chicago. We lived on top of Lakeshore Drive, literally, so the traffic was constant. Both of us were very busy. Alan with weddings, and we had founded a synagogue in Chicago, and we were just pooped out and decided we were both going to retire. I was, I think, 67 or 68 at that point. We're both the same age. So we moved here. We found this wonderful house with marvelous energy, and we moved in. It was a fairy tale town. Lots of tourists, lots of restaurants, but small and manageable. At that point, I think there were 7,000 people in the town of Whitefish, but recently it's grown, and I don't know what the latest figures are. Maybe Dan would have it, but at least another 2,000, I would think, after the growth with with COVID. It is a tourist mecca at this point. We have a beautiful lake, we have skiing, we have fishing, we have golf. All of that is here that beckons to people to come to visit. However, racism and anti-Semitism and anti was no stranger to Whitefish. Years ago.
Vanessa, put up.
Yes.
Put up that first flyer.
Okay.
Years ago, there was a man by the name of Stokes who owned a radio station here, and he really was the center for anti-Semitism and white supremacy as it grew in Whitefish.
Let me interrupt you for just a moment. This is a flyer that occurred often in the early days here. A flyer, you might come out to a parking lot and this flyer would be in your car, or you walk into a store and this flyer is on one of the shelves. A future for white children from 14 Word Press. And for those that don't know, for David Lane and 1488. 1488 is AD, 8 for Adolf, and 88 is Heil Hitler. Okay, so problems were present.
Rabbi, can you define the early days or just give us some dates?
Our early days. I'm talking about our early days. That is to say, between 2000 and let's say 2016, when the event happened, there wasn't much above board other than occasionally flyers such as this one. So those are the days leading up to December of 2016.
Let me tell you a little bit more about these flyers. These flyers appeared in stores, put into books that were for sale, in the front doors, stuffed into the locks, so that when a shopkeeper came and opened the door, this flyer would fall out. I would collect them and give them to the police and just have them as evidence of what was happening in town. And that became a regular job, so to speak.
You can take it down.
Where was I now? Okay.
Stokes.
Yes, thank you. We were talking about Stokes and what he did and how he was really the focus of anti-Semitism, white supremacy in the town. And eventually, after a number of confrontations and a film that was called The Fire Next Time was made, he faded. He went bankrupt in his radio station and left. However, replacing him very quickly was a woman by the name of April Gaddy, who came from California and invited all the white supremacists to come to Whitefish because, and she showed a picture of it, all the white babies on the beach at Flathead, at Whitefish Lake. And this was the ideal place for them to come and set up an organization called Little Europe. She had daughters who sang, twin daughters who sang Nazi songs, and she was just an absolutely, she was really a touchstone for the anger and the upset and the invasion of our town. The neighbors put up signs called "No Hate Here" when she moved into Kalispell. And then we started to hold meetings. And one of the meetings, I saw that this sign, "No Hate Here," was really gaining a lot of traction. And it bothered me because I didn't want to stand for hate or have that be a trigger for what we were doing. So we changed the call letter for this campaign to "Love Lives Here." And "Love Lives Here" became the title for the organization that we founded, that goes on strong today and is now part of the Montana Human Rights Network and has done marvelous things to protect people, to protect rights, and all of that. On top of what happened with Spencer, with Stokes, and with April Gaddy, came another person who had been in Whitefish for a long time, and his family had been here. His name was Richard Spencer, and you must have heard of him. He's the originator of the alt-right movement in the United States. But before that, other things started to turn up. And what turned up was German propaganda films that were being shown in the Kalispell Library. And that really got our attention. So a group of us decided to demonstrate the nights that these movies were being shown. The first night was the first night of Passover. There he is. And while Alan and I certainly couldn't be there on the first night of Passover, 60 non-Jews showed up to demonstrate for Love Lives Here. That was the beginning of a really powerful organization. And it took off and got the attention of the Whitefish Council, and the council passed an ordinance. I wanted to read to you the ordinance that they passed. And Spencer spoke there against this and wanted a little Europe with a separate white nation here. The council said this: "Now therefore, as mayor of the city of Whitefish, I proclaim that the city of Whitefish repudiates ideas and ideology of white nationalists and so-called alt-right as a direct affront to our community's core values and principles. The city reiterates its commitment to values, laws, programs, including two ordinances here, honoring the inherent worth of all people, regardless of their race, creed, national origin, sex, or sexual orientation." Now, that was a big thing for this little town to do. And we were so proud that that happened.
Ina, what's the Jewish population of Whitefish?
10.
That will give us that'll paint the picture for us.
Jewish population, at best, in the county, there is a much larger town 12 miles away called Kalispell. But in the county, I'd say at best 60 families at best, only 30 of whom identify as Jews. The other 30 say, look, it cost me back in Highland Park, okay? Or the Jewish Federation was on my case. I don't want to be bothered. Or I'm worried about the Cossacks. So that's at best 60 families.
Let me tell you that a lot of the drawing together of Love Lives Here and the focus of what we did came about after the election of Trump. We were really upset about that and decided that we would, because Christmas Eve and Hanukkah were the same night, we decided to have a demonstration, a party, a celebration of the holidays downtown during the Christmas stroll. And we celebrated with lighting the Hanukkah candles and with a minister telling the story of Christmas. And we were lucky because Whitefish has a wonderful artist community and music community, and all of the performers coming in from New York and California arrived that day and came to the party and sang. We had over 300 people at the celebration of light together who became supporters of Love Lives Here and understanding what was going on. But before this whole thing started, Tanya Gersh and her family lit the Hanukkah candles, and it was a Friday night, so they did Shabbat as well.
All right, so one other bit that I want to talk about in background is that came one day, this is probably about 2015, came one day a fellow who announces on his Facebook post or Instagram or whatever the hell it was, that he is in Whitefish and Kalispell. He's in the county, and his task is to put two in the head of the rabbi. guess which rabbi, and get rid of at least 40 children in the Kalispell school system. Turns out he wasn't from here. He was from Michigan. They caught him. Okay. He was tried, convicted, and sent home to his father in Michigan. Now that's background. Now let me say, that was all to set you up for December of 2016. Okay, that's 16 years worth of stuff. Let me introduce you to a local real estate agent. Her name is Tanya Gersh, and you might have seen her here and there on TV recently. Not only does Richard Spencer, he of Heil Trump, after Trump was elected, but Spencer, you saw before, we put up the picture of good old Richard Spencer. And he's different than most neo-Nazis that we know. Spencer is buttoned down shirt and collar and suit.
And a master's degree.
And a master's degree, and he was even working on a PhD at Duke University. And one of his buddies at Duke University is Stephen Miller, ex of Trump fame. All right, so Richard Spencer lives in this town. Richard Spencer's mother and father also have a home in this town. Richard Spencer and his mother built what is very common in this town, a building that has stores on the bottom and living space on the top. And it was clear that this was Spencer's doing. One day in mid-December, Tanya Gersh gets a phone call from Richard Spencer's mother saying, I'm embarrassed. Wow.
You've got a lot of Tanya.
Keep that up for a bit.
All right.
There's-
All right. You've got a very experienced producer here, Rabbi.
Wow. Okay, because the fellow with the red hat,
video. I mean, sound. I think they mute everybody. This is camera.
the fellow with the red hat is going to play a role in just a moment. And that's Andrew Anglin. Okay, so this is wonderful. Can I do this every week? So Tanya gets a phone call from Spencer's mother. Spencer's mother said, I'm embarrassed by my son.
Oh.
It is time for me to sell the building we're building. Would you take over the sale of the building? And Tanya said, sure. And then and what can I do, more or less, what can I do to show the community I'm embarrassed? And Tanya says, well, some of the profits from the sale, why don't you donate them to some of the local organizations? That was a start. A short period after that, now let's put up Vanessa. Let's put up the next piece. Yes. Now this is the third iteration. Andrew Anglin ran a daily operation called the Daily Stormer, built on Hitler's Der Stürmer. Okay, he ran an operation, and he was a buddy of Spencer. I believe that this whole thing was a setup. To see what can we do, and what can we do to expand neo-Nazis, and what can we, and how will the community react? Can we pull it off? This was, I think, the third iteration of what appeared in the Daily Stormer. And at this point, Spencer is claiming that Tanya Gersh is attempting to extort his mother. It was a whole setup. And so
And it
this,
was, let me interrupt you. It was a setup because at that point too, there was a vacancy in for Congress, and I think that Spencer set it up so that he could run for Congress and this would be his platform. However, he never did. And
all right, I put it up again. Same one, Vanessa. All right, so this was the third, I think the third. The first presentation was not this March on Whitefish, but was, and not Auschwitz, okay? But it was these four pictures. Blacked out here is Tanya's, at the time, I think Jacob was about 13 or so, 12 or 13. And underneath the picture at that time was faggot kike bastard, defining Jacob. Then the three women were not only defined, that's Tanya there, that's Rabbi Francine, and Rabbi Francine, there is a local congregation here, and Francine is the rabbi of the local congregation, and lo and behold, there's Zina. And now what they did with the three of them was they gave their phone number, their email address for all three of the women. It, on the initial piece that Anglin put up, down in the corner was not my picture, but my name and our phone number. Now, very fortunately for the two of us, it was the wrong phone number. Tanya got over 1,000 emails and hundreds of phone calls, hundreds. And the phone call was very simple with Tanya. The phone call, she'd pick up the phone and she'd get shots. She would hear shots. People
gunshots.
Gunshots. Okay. I don't know how many emails Francine got. In Ina's case, Ina got 135 emails. She did not open them. Okay. My email address was down in that corner. I got 65 emails. They decided it would be better to hit the women. And now, so now take this down and put the next one up. I want to give you an example of the emails that I got.
Here we go.
If this was CNN, you would get, there it is. Gas the fucking kikes, race war. Now you kid fucking Pizzagate inciting kike. I will kill you. I will gas your wife. And there's the 1488. Now that's just one. I opened all of mine. And perhaps the other email that I ought to tell you about is one that said 6 million was not enough. But these were absolutely all over the place.
And look at the email address that it came from.
Yes.
Yes, Kuhn Killer,
Mhm.
1488. So we add to it. Now I got, some of my emails were in German. And some of my, now when all this happened, immediately we informed the local police, the FBI, the ADL, the Southern
Southern Poverty
Poverty Law
Who
Center.
were terrific. They were wonderful.
They were the best of the responders to all this. They were here instantly.
And the interesting part of it was that Rabbi Rostin, who had come to us from a large congregation in New Jersey, had all these national contacts. So the ADL and Southern Poverty and all of the other organizations that we're familiar with, she had contacts. And then we started to get support from these people that was really helpful. Instruction on how to be secure, what to do, how to act, what support was there for us, which was really important. In a small town, you don't have that kind of connection. So I'm forever grateful to Francine Rostin for that.
There's one side story that suddenly, when Vanessa asked us if we would talk about what happened here, that I had totally forgotten. And that is a Jewish reporter from a local television station is partly responsible for all the furor that existed. He came, this was a fellow who had left Detroit. My guess is Detroit said, you are no longer welcome here. Had come here, I mean, we're the ends of the earth. So he had come here with one of the little TV stations that are around. He interviewed us, I think, by phone.
No, he was here.
He was here.
In a shirt and a tie and a jacket, which was so unusual. I mean, he was really out of character.
Yeah, a shirt, a tie, and a jacket, out of character. Here, dress up is a shirt that you've only worn twice. So
What was his name?
You know, I don't remember.
Was it Max Siegel?
No,
No,
no.
it wasn't.
He's gone from here. But he came here and he interviewed us. He interviewed Tanya and Francine. And he interviewed Spencer and his mother. And then he began reporting on the news.
On Fox, right?
Back on Fox and ABC. It's a combined station here. But he began reporting, backing Spencer. Just backing. He didn't want to hear anything we had said. He backing Spencer. So that escalated. Spencer was getting absolutely all the coverage he needed, all the coverage he wanted. And this guy continued to report on the news, backing Spencer. So that's a little bit. All right, so now we have titled this presentation, The Little Town That Could, The Little Town That Can. And so we need now to report, what happened with the town? You're on.
The town, remember when I told you it was small and there's one center, Central Avenue, center of the town, people know each other. They not only know each other, but they say hello, even if they don't know you. They say hello, they wave at cars. It is a very friendly, warm, small place. So when this happened, the support that we got was unbelievable.
This is super.
It was, we couldn't walk down the street without people saying, are you all right? Are you doing okay? Let me hug you. I want you to know that we're there with you. People called, kids made little love boxes with hearts in them and little candies. We got food baskets, we got flowers, we got letters and cards, and it was an unbelievable reaction. This, of course, hit the papers and got a lot of attention from politicians too. So there were letters from John Tester and from the governor and from the attorney general.
Put it up, Vanessa.
And not only that, but Governor Bullock made a trip with staff members to see all of us. We all gathered at Rabbi Francine's house to tell him what was going on and what we thought could be done, should be done. How do we plan for this in the future? But mostly Steve Bullock just brought his sympathy and his empathy and his goodwill. And that meant a lot. There was no press there. He didn't want press out of it. He just wanted to be with us and to know what was going on. That made me forever a fan of Steve Bullock. But also the John Tester and Steve Daines and even Ryan Zinke and Tim Fox sent letters, and they were all published. So we had a lot of political support for this thing. But the best response that Alan had spoken of before was the Southern Poverty Law Center.
All right, so let me jump in here and say, yes, we had spectacular response from the community. Absolutely spectacular, with a but. The one but was we got no response from the churches. Not a single church. No, and there are some liberal churches in the area. Now it's mostly rock rib evangelical churches, but not a single church. And Ina and I had formed a liberal ministerial society shortly after we got here. Even the liberal ministers did not respond, much to our terrible distress and embarrassment.
It was really disappointing. However, who did respond was the Whitefish police. And we lived just outside of the boundaries of Whitefish, so that wasn't their territory. But every day there was a police car coming up our road and a call from the local police department to make sure we were all right. Now, this doesn't happen in big cities, but it was such a feeling of security and peace that we knew that we were being watched. And the other thing that was absolutely marvelous was one day there's a knock at the door and there's a guy standing there as a friend. And I said, Scott, you didn't call before you came. What's happening? He said, we know you don't have a security system, so we're going to put one in. No cost to you. I'm here with somebody who can put it up for you. We're going to spend the day putting that security system in because we just don't like the fact that you're not protected. And we're surrounded by trees on a mountain, so it really is a vulnerable spot. And that's what they did. They put in a security system to make sure that we were all right. The other, I can't say enough for Southern Poverty Law, but they were the ones that handled Tanya's case when she sued Anglin after all this was over, and they won. And she was awarded $13 million, which she will never see, but that was the outgrowth of that. They also coached us in security, all these people, what you do, how you should be, who you should call, when it was a tremendous support.
So here's my take on all this, is that this was a prelude. And I think this is what Spencer planned, because it wasn't very long after this that Charlottesville happened, led by Richard Spencer. He got away. He didn't get arrested for anything here. It was Anglin. Charlottesville was next, and then there's a whole list. And I understand in the last month or so, there's been stuff in Chicago. So it was an absolute start. Now, we don't see Spencer any longer here. He's around every once in a while. I bump into him at the local health club. He recognizes me, and of course I recognize him. But Spencer, with the Charlottesville happening, has been convicted. So hopefully he's going to be quiet. Now, it is very clear that community in all of this matters large. And so what we're prepared to do here, and by the way, keeping this to an hour was difficult for us because I can't say my name in less than 20 minutes. So keeping this close, but we want to set you up because it's not done. You just saw it in Chicago. It's not done. And that's why before when Vanessa said, give us hope, no, we're not going to give you hope. We're going to give you a way to respond. Before we do that, though, there's two things, Ina, that we've forgotten to tell them. The outdoor gathering of support. Mm-hmm. It's cold here in Whitefish, Montana, okay? When all this was happening, as far as the town was concerned, the town decided to do a mass support. And they held it outside.
On January 1st.
At
January 2nd.
On a town park. The temperature was
below zero.
Below zero. And 500 people showed up for the gathering. But it was a support gathering. Now, at this same time, Anglin, in the piece we showed before of Auschwitz, Anglin announced that he was bringing 50 supporters from San Francisco, of course, dressed in their ripped t-shirts and tattoos. He was bringing 50 armed supporters. That was the March on Whitefish, bringing 50 supporters by bus from San Francisco. Now, can you picture 50 San Francisco neo-Nazis riding for 2 days in a bus to 5 below weather? Okay, so the town said, all right, Anglin, you can, he was going to have a member of Hamas armed with an Uzi in the bus. So the town said, all right, tell you what, you can do this, but here's what you have to do. You have to $250 fee, 1. 2, you have to show us insurance. 3, you have to show us your parade route. So Anglin sent in a fee, $65. Okay, he did not show any insurance, nor did he show a parade route. Now I was convinced that he wasn't going to show anyhow, but he kept on saying he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. And then when the town said, no, you can't come, he said, oh, it's the Jew bastards. It's the Jew bastards that prevented him from coming. The town turned around and said, no, it's not. It's only $65 you sent, and you didn't do this and this. But the town wasn't sure that Anglin wouldn't show up otherwise. So here's what they planned. They planned an entire afternoon. He was to come on Martin Luther King Day. And they planned an all-day giveaway at the local mid-school of matzo ball soup. If it's cold outside and you would like matzo ball soup, just drop into the school.
The school cooperated. They kept the soup warm there. I think they made it there. The cafeteria was open for everybody. We really had support of the administration of the school department.
And then the evening was the Martin Luther King event. I've been producing it now for like 15 years. But it was a town's answer to what was going on. And the auditorium where we meet seats 500. We probably had close to 1,000 people show up. So we had to do a closed circuit in the lobby so that others could join in. All right, now we want to give you some suggestion. I promise you, anti-Semitism is going to hit Highland Park if it hasn't already. It will. But here's some answers. I know. Wait.
Well, I wanted to tell you, yes, I wanted to tell you too, that the organization of Love Lives Here is strong now. And it was supported and is supported by people all over the Flathead County. That is the organization that speaks for love, that speaks for fairness, that speaks for sanity. And with what's happening all over with school boards and people demonstrating, it's really necessary to have an organization like that in your back pocket. What we did and what we do now as Love Lives Here, which is now associated with the Montana Human Rights Network. So we are supported statewide and have the benefit of their contacts as far as press and politics is concerned throughout the state. But this was I don't know whether you can see this.
No, they can't.
This is the flyer that we put out, instructions for people who are going through this, and I'd be glad to forward it to you, Vanessa, so that you'd have it. The first thing to do when this starts to appear, when and if it appears in Highland Park, is to save any evidence. That flyer that you saw in the beginning, that was saved. It should be distributed to the police and to organizations that are supporting you, certainly to other Jewish congregations. Call the authorities, call the police department, call the county police, and let them know what's going on. Any incidents should be reported to the police. Then there's something that you can do yourselves. This is not a one-person thing. You have to gather support. You have to have a group of people who know what's going on, who sit with you and say, okay, we are willing to demonstrate, we are willing to be with you, we are willing to give money, we are willing to support the fact that we want Highland Park to stay a safe place. Now, there are some people who feel that contacting the press when this happens is a good thing to do. I think it depends on the situation. And if you can get support from any large Illinois department that is dedicated to human rights, this is getting in touch with the press and with television should be passed through them, so that not only can you have their support, but whether they think it's wise and they have a broader view of what's going on. Throw a party. Celebrate the fact that you're Jews in Highland Park and that you know one another and you care about one another and that you'll support one another. Watch out for those who are vulnerable. Make sure you know that if someone can't get out of the house, that if someone is not safe, that they get the support of their neighbors. This really is an exercise in love for all of you. You have to connect with others. There are other organizations in the state and around and in the government that you should know about. And also, we communicate all the time. It is important to communicate what you know, when the meetings are, for the synagogues to stand together, for everyone to contact the church people and let them know what's going on. It's their choice whether they'll support you or not, or whether they're scared to death of who's going to leave their congregation. But the ministers should know what's going on.
don't,
there are other things that I'm sure you could do that are more appropriate to Highland Park than they would be certainly to Whitefish, Montana. But figure it out. Set up your plan of action. It may never happen. I hope it doesn't. But if it does, be prepared.
there was a modest disagreement among the Jews of Whitefish. Some said, shut up, be quiet, hide. Okay. That was not our attitude. I learned a phrase back in my college days that was clear for the two of us. It's the phrase illegitimus non carborundum. Don't let the bastards get you down. Okay. We did not run scared. We ran proud. Okay. We were not at any time going to let this, we were not going to hide under the bushel basket, as the Yiddish goes.
You know, the picture that I had when these emails started to come was of that picture of the fat guy sitting on a bed using his false name and sending out emails to upset people. Didn't use his name, wasn't out front but was hiding. And I thought, you know, if this is the kind of person that is sending this, and I had every reason to believe that that's who it was, because that was Anglin's audience, then there wasn't anything to be afraid of. But Alan and I are in our 80s. We don't have children. We're not as vulnerable as Tanya with her son Jacob, and as Francine with her children living home. So they were really extra careful and extra vigilant about what was happening.
All right, so Vanessa,
Yes.
we're sort of wrapped, but we have 10 minutes before.
Yes.
And I see there are a number of chats.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple. I have a question for you. And I also want to say that I'm sure Francine, Rabbi Francine and Tanya, you describe them as vulnerable, and I'm sure they're worried about you as well.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes, indeed.
here's a question. All your Christian neighbors came out, this from Ross, and were supportive on the streets. Why do you think their leaders, their clergy, were silent on the matter?
Afraid of losing.
They're afraid. We are a very, very, very red state.
Yeah.
Very. Except Whitefish isn't. Whitefish is very blue, but we're a very red state. And the concern was, if I take a stand, what's going to happen to those of the red? They're going to leave. Okay. Some people, by the way, left the congregation here as well, but they're going to leave. So I better not open my mouth. Now, I am convinced when, after all this happened, I went before the liberal group and I kicked ass. I was furious as to what they didn't do. Nowadays, I am convinced that at least half a dozen of the liberal clergy would back us up. One incident, one minister, he had just recently come to town, did support us, but he went to his church to ask them, would they sponsor the love boxes that we got? They want to build love boxes, want a spot for building the love boxes in the church. And the church said no. The church refused. Just amazing.
That is very amazing. And I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of you telling someone to, let's get going here. And I'm sure you spurred them on, and it is hopeful to us because I think we need that type of inspiration from both of you to continue working. We did have last week in Chicago, synagogues in West Rogers Park vandalized and Nazi symbols. So I agree with you. Anti-Semitism is not going anywhere. We do have time for a few questions. You can raise your, all right, so Dan Weinberg, you get the prize for getting up the earliest because you're in Hawaii.
Thank you. I want to, my sister just reminded me of something that that happened to me, and that is in 2004, I ran for public office. I ran for state senate, which I won. But in the process, I became aware through friends that in some of the churches, they were talking about, they were saying to the people in church, you don't want to be represented by a Jewish guy, do you? And that was going on. And it wasn't widespread, but I know that it happened. I had to make a calculation at that point of, what to do about that. I was running a campaign. I knew that it was going to be a difficult campaign. No Democrat had ever won that seat. And I chose not to fight it publicly at the time because it would have complicated the campaign, and I'm sure I wouldn't have been elected. So, that kind of flies in the face with what Alan and Ina are saying about fighting back and being present. But it was my calculation at the time. I really wanted to win that campaign, and it was the right thing for me at the time. I would add one more thing, and that is that wonderful event that Ina talked about on January 2nd outside in the cold. That was really put together by citizens, not by city government. In fact, our mayor had escaped to Canada. He was gone through an important part of all this mess. And the vice mayor, after a long conversation with me, agreed to speak at that gathering. But really, the city government was not at that point as supportive as it could have been. But more importantly, all those people showed up, and it was really through the efforts of private citizens that worked so well. And I'll tell you, that was an amazing gathering out there. I've never seen such support in my life. So that's my story.
Yeah, I think big gatherings are something that we look forward to returning to. And, it'll be even more special when we can gather again. Karen asks, I'm curious about the letter from your elected officials. When they sent the letter, you said it was not public, right? And did they get any backlash?
Not that we know of. No, it was it was published in the newspaper.
The letter was
published. So the entire community saw this.
Mhm.
My guess is we might, with the two Republicans, congressman and senator, it might have been a little difficult to get them to agree. But Bullock was right there, came to support us. Yeah, that's the letter. But that was, Vanessa, that was published.
Okay. So of those people, of this, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many of those are Republicans?
Tim Fox's, I believe, I think was a Republican. Zinke, who's running again for Congress here,
And was
Yeah.
fired by Trump.
and Danes.
Okay,
Okay,
fascinating.
Hester is just a wonderful, caring individual.
He's a fine senator.
Yeah. Carol or Alan Green, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Was the reporter you spoke about, was his name Ben Jacobs?
No,
I don't.
Okay.
think
I don't think so.
We read about an altercation that he had with the man who I believe is now your governor.
Oh, no, it is not the same person. No, he's not the one that Gianforte hit. No.
And Ike, good to see. I didn't realize you were on, Ike.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I didn't want to distract with my face earlier, but it's really good to see you guys. I'm so glad that you're feeling well and able to join us. And I just want to say that, here in Highland Park and Deerfield together, we have a very good interfaith clergy group. So that I think that, so even a few weeks ago when things happened in Colleyville, I started to get calls from my colleagues, from churches around the community. So I think
That's wonderful.
we're in a different kind of position here, I think, should something come down the pike our way.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
And that kind of support is going to be very necessary.
I have another question from Howard. Do you arm yourself? You have the security system, so that protects
We
you.
have a security system. Rabbi Francine took lessons, bought a gun and took lessons. She has at the doorway of their home, she has a baseball bat in case somebody comes through. We have not armed ourselves. I just can't do it.
Montana is an open carry state. So,
Yeah,
guns.
okay. So that means, yes. I don't know what to say about that. People coming into the congregation are open carrying. Do we have, we're coming up to the 11 o'clock time. Any other questions? I can't thank you enough for sharing this. It's a wonderful story. You are both fantastic storytellers. And we just want to listen to your advice, your experiences, and it's been wonderful. You're getting thank yous in the chat. And it's good to see everybody here. Again, next week is Lock's Box. You have to order it. Rabbi Rick Jacobs. Oh yeah, the Super Bowl. But all of our programming will not interfere with the Super Bowl. Just remember that. Just remember, you can do both. And it's just wonderful to see everybody. Rabbi Allen and Eno, what a pleasure. What an absolute pleasure.
We've had a good time too. We love telling this story because it's important that it's heard.
Yes.
So thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah. And I admire the way you handled it. It's never easy in those kind of tense, very public situations. Okay.
All those that have been on that I know, Chia, was good to see you.
Yes.
This is terrific.
Hello to all of you.
And when you're in the environs and post-COVID, you're going to have to drop by and we can get,
All right, you're on.
Okay. Yay.
Thank you.
All right. It's wonderful seeing anyone. Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.